Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, profiler here, and welcome. Today, this show is pretty much focused on Delphi. And, it's our goodbye to Delphi. I mean, we were very honored to be part of the investigation into Libby and Abby's deaths. Again, my deepest and our, as a team, sincere condolences go out to the family and friends of Libby and Abby. And, it's been a long road. I mean, we were just talking, we were involved over 5 years, from then till now. And we were happy to be involved. We were happy to try and sort this out for the victims and their families and all at Delphi, because the whole community was terrorized by this, whether they realize it or not, especially anybody with young children. Finally, we have justice for the families and friends of Libby and Abby. I understand Richard Allen got 130 years in prison today as a sentence. I'm very happy about that. He deserves every day he does. And this is justice. At least the families are seeing some justice here. We've worked cases where we haven't seen justice, where families have not gotten justice. However, as far as closure goes, there's no such thing as closure for family members of two young children, two victims that were savagely murdered. And even though the families will go on and hopefully they can cope with it better over time, but they're never going to be healed. There's going to always be that hole in their heart, that place in their heart for Libby and Abby. And, that's not going to be healed with Richard Allen getting his just desserts, if you know what I mean. It's going to take time. And, I'm glad the gag order's lifted so people can talk now and express themselves and let it flow and can, actually, even to this day, even though it's all these years later, can mourn Libby and Abby any way they want to in an auditory way and talk about it any way they want to without having fear of, disrupting or not adhering to the gag orders. So I think that's good. So today we'll be saying goodbye to Delphi, but we will never forget Delphi. We'll never forget the people from Delphi, the outpouring from Delphi. I mean, Delphi, as far as I'm concerned, is a class town. It's a great town. Or city. I don't know what it's called up there, but the bottom line is that there was a lot of class that was shown by the community of Delphi and the way they handled this horrible, horrible murder and this real intense investigation. Also, I want to bring out that I really salute the police up there, all of law enforcement that was involved in this case. I mean, you have to understand, for a small community, a small town like this, to get whacked with the double murder of two young girls out on a trail. I mean, this presents quite an investigation and is very problematic. And I really believe and give a lot of credit to law enforcement there on how they stuck to their guns. They kept it quiet. They kept it down low. They kept everything close to their vest, and they just moved forward. And thank God for Kathy Shank. God bless Kathy Shank. Okay? Miracles happen. Miracles happen. What are the odds of her going back and finding that tip? Think about that next time you play the lottery. Okay? So God bless her, and God bless all law enforcement to follow up on this, because this was really a very, very complicated case. And with these kinds of cases, there are mistakes made. No law enforcement team is beyond making a mistake. It's human. Okay, so sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes people feel that it's an injustice that's taken place because some person of interest wasn't investigated or whatever. The bottom line for that is there has to be a reason to investigate that person or persons. Evidence has to point that way. I mean, I'll kind of give you an example here. We talk to the people that weren't investigated, and we take a look and we look at the different people that were investigated, and I assume either cleared or really checked out as best as they could, because sometimes in these cases you can't clear everybody. I mean, there are people that come down to the wire that you just can't clear. I saw it in Green River. I mean, you just can't exclude them. Okay. And what we're looking at here is we're looking at Daniel Nations. He had to be investigated. Ron Logan, Charles Eldridge, James Chatwell. And this is just off the top of my head. Okay. How about Talmadge Jasper? Turned out to be a murderer. I think he was ahead of them a few years, of Libby and Abby in the same school. How about went into him, right? Then we have to look at Paul Etter. We have to ask ourselves what happened with him. We have to also take a look at Klein, Keegan Klein. He was somebody that had to be eliminated. A lot of these people had to be eliminated, no question about it. I think there was a Jerome Weiss that was looked at. I don't know if he had to be eliminated or not, but his name stands out. There's no question about it. And who else am I forgetting? Oh, how could I ever forget Garrett Kurtz? Okay. Right. I mean, Garrett Kurtz. Now, this is pretty wild for those of you that don't understand, but Garrett Kurtz technically is a serial killer if, in fact, he killed 2 people over a period of time, which I think he did get found guilty for. All right. And he grew up pretty much on Ron Logan's property and knew that area extremely well, knew the bridge well. And in the beginning, don't forget, the biggest theory was the revenge theory, and that Garrett Kurtz, who had a connection with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend had some kind of connection with Libby's father, and all of that, going on back and forth, that, she was out to seek revenge on Libby's father, so she hired Garrett Kurtz. Stuff was mentioned like that. Allegations were made, which, sets off the chain of events that takes you into, looking into this hitman kind of situation that would take out 2 young girls in the middle of the afternoon in broad daylight on a trail where there's all these other people hanging around. We never bought into that, but I mean, a lot of people did buy into it. Let's not forget about the Odinism and the Odinists and all this and that and everything else. Okay. I mean, let's take a look at them too. I mean, that's ridiculous. To me, it was ridiculous. But, I mean, what do you have this cult that operated this one time and made only one sacrifice, never sacrificed anybody before them, never sacrificed anybody after them, but just that one day, they had nothing better to do, so they did their sacrifice, right? So I think it's important for us to look at all this stuff and to realize the cops followed the evidence. The cops followed people that could be put there at the time. And I think they did a fantastic job. All right. Is anything perfect? No. Is any investigation perfect? No. Is a crime scene meticulously cleaned up where nothing or no pieces of evidence are left behind? No, no. Nothing is perfectly done. There's always something that's out of the way. You don't hear about it a lot because that's not something, law enforcement wants to advertise, that they forgot a piece of a bathing suit or something, or didn't get all of a bathing suit. One case that I worked that was left at a crime scene. But no, the good news is that these guys went back, they scoured it, they found this bullet, they were able to match the bullet. So, you have to understand that this was really a great job by the prosecution and law enforcement, and we really tip our hats to them. They did it. They did it well. They did it right. And again, miracles do happen. And thank you so much for Kathy Shank. So anyway, with that being said, again, our deepest condolences out to the family and friends. And Pam and Leah, you've been part of this. I mean, say how you feel. Talk about it.
Go ahead, Leah.
Yeah. I think it's just like, hey, finally, after all these years, we finally have some sort of ending. And I just never thought it would actually happen. John, I've been working with you for years on this one now, pretty much since we started working together. So it's just been like, wow, we actually have a name here. I'm happy the families finally have, some sort of ending. Like you said, there's no closure, but at least now. I don't think that this guy really stands a chance with any appeal. I don't know. John, what do you think? Is there any sort of chance there?
I think, you can always find some kind of grounds to appeal something on. If he does find a way to appeal it, if he does find an issue that they can appeal it on, I don't think it's going to hold any water. I mean, we have the guy putting himself there. We have Richard Allen putting himself on the bridge. We have the gun he owned, matching the kind of bullet that was found at the crime scene. We have his admissions. Some guy, I mean, I think the admission was something to the effect of, I was going to rape the girls, but when I saw the van or something, I got scared and I didn't, so I just killed them. A real hell of a guy, right? Hell of a guy. I mean, you didn't want to rape them, you didn't kill them. But yet some, girls were missing clothes there. Okay, so what do you mean? I mean, what were they doing? Why? How did their clothes come off? Okay, I mean, when these guys start moving their lips, they're lying. When their lips start moving, they're lying. So I mean, it's pretty much. I don't think he's going to catch any grounds on the appeal. Pam, you've been involved in a lot of court cases. Do you see him, winning an appeal here?
Not really. Not really. I mean, that's just my opinion. But no. He's going to have to, I mean, is he going to, I don't think he can use the same attorneys, right? I think he has to get different attorneys for the appeal process.
Well, usually there's attorneys that specialize in appeals.
Right,
so,
right. So it's a whole thing over, and it's probably going to be years for that, right?
Oh, by the time it runs through the process and everything, I mean, there's no question. There's no question about it. And, he has nothing to lose. He's doing life. He's never going to do his time. No way he's going to do 130 years. No,
right.
Be the oldest human being on the planet. So, I mean, but he's going to suffer a fate worse than death, and I'll tell you why. When people say they're afraid of death or whatever, see, death is pretty much a situation that happens within minutes, let's say, or something, right? Whether it's a shot in the head, a stabbing, whatever, unless it's a drawn out torture kind of thing. But what is constant is the fear of death, the fear of death. And this guy has got to be afraid of somebody taking him out every day he spends in prison. So even though he may not get killed, or another prisoner may not take anything out on him. He has to live under constant fear. And I don't care if you're prisoners, I don't care if you're guards, I don't care if you cook there, you have a job working in the kitchen, wherever your job is throughout the prison. Nobody pretty much at all likes a child killer. I mean, they just, that's just something that 99% of them can't swallow. And, who in there might be looking for fame. And this is all, I'm sure, gone through his mind and he's thinking about.
Right.
And who we also have to really, really give so much credit to is Libby, in her video, because I truly believe that's what kept this guy under wraps. All right. Because usually when we have somebody that kills 2 children and, is a fantasy killer that's into raping and killing kids, I mean, let's face it, even if he did rape them, he was going to kill them. They were going to die either way. He says, instead of raping them, he killed them. But I got news for you. Even if he raped them, he's going to kill them because he doesn't want witnesses testifying against him. So it's witness elimination one way or the other. Okay. I mean, this guy had made up his mind on his way there that day, that somebody was going to get it that day. I don't know if Libby and Abby were victims of opportunity, where it's more nefarious, and somehow he was able to know where they were going to be, kept an eye on them, was attracted to them, and was stalking them in some way. We don't know. I don't know. But this guy really, really, scoped it out pretty good. Libby kept him at bay. Because usually if these guys act out once and get away with it, it's like a lion getting a taste of blood for the first time. I mean, they're going to go and do it again and do it again. And that's how we end up with these serials all over the place. And he doesn't have 2 victims over a period of time, so you technically can't call him a serial, but I'm going to call him a serial because there were 2 victims that he killed. Okay. And I'm not going to get into stupidity over lapses of time. What's the difference between 10 minutes and 10 days, 10 weeks and 10 months? I mean, come on, I mean, murder's murder, right? So anyway, I mean, I really believe that the bottom line is he's got to live with this fear every day for the rest of his life. And that is, I believe, a fate worse than death. To not know. I mean, you've got to be hyper vigilant all the time in prison. He's got to be hyper vigilant all the time. I mean, the stress from that alone got to eat you alive. I mean, just wandering in a line over here, line over there, going to the doctor's office, going to wash up, go to the shower. I mean, oh man, I mean, I think I'll be surprised if he can last. I mean, I think the stress alone will just eat him up alive,
John, can I just elaborate on the whole phone thing?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So in the press conference today, McLeland, brought that up at the very end about, Libby's video and everything and how that really helped the investigation. But also that Abby was the one who hid the phone.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's
So the thing is,
they work
you see,
together.
right. And you think about it, they were such good friends that they
Yeah.
kind of like read off of each other, right?
Right.
So that really says something.
Absolutely. And you know what really says something too is the love they had for each other, because
Exactly.
one of them could have got away. If both of them broke and ran, one would have got away. He would have only gotten one.
Right.
And even though he had a gun, he wasn't going to fire it. Okay.
Right.
You could see the way he killed him. He killed him with a knife because it was quiet. He didn't want to attract people that were up on the trail. And a gunshot in that area, or a couple gunshots in that area, would have attracted onlookers, which would have turned out to be witnesses. Okay. So he may have been able to run after one, catch one, and stab them, but he wasn't going to catch both of them if they split and broke and ran, because he'd have to fire the gun. He starts firing the gun, everybody's on top. They're looking at him, okay? Because there were people all around up there, you know? So, I mean, you know, I love hearing that and how these two girls work together, love together, you know, played together. I mean, they were just class. They were class kids, you know.
Yeah.
You wonder how many lives, you wonder how many lives they saved. Because we know, Pam, Leah, we know these guys don't stop. Lots of times they don't stop. Sometimes the older they get, the worse they get, you know. I'd love to know where this guy's been, you know, what his history is, where he's been around, you know. I mean, he's an angry, violent, weird kind of dude, you know. And I think it's Joe Lynn's story, Leah, that we know the Joe Lynn story. I mean, she talks about working with him. And this girl, why I put so much credit into her, because this girl came right out on the internet. You know, she came right out online, didn't hesitate, and said, "This is the guy we worked with, and this is what he was after, and he wanted sex. Okay, he wanted a threesome, and I'm a lesbian, and me and my girlfriend didn't want anything to do with him, but he still persisted. Okay, so I could see a fantasy in his mind, an obsession, kind of with that. You know what I mean? And then he sees Libby and Abby, two girls, young girls walking, and he goes after them, right? So there's much more to this guy. There's much more to this guy. There's no question about it. I mean, he's a fantasy. He's a fantasy killer. I mean, on some of the searches that they dug up on him, I think it was kidnapping and abduction. And I'm sure they don't have nowhere near the amount of searches that this guy did over the years and what he was looking at, what he was fantasizing over. But the very fact, and we put it in our profile, we had that in our profile, that this guy would be into porno, you know, and this guy knew what he was, knew the area very well. I mean, we had really, really a lot of good hits on this guy, and they were generic, but we didn't know who he was, you know. And you know, there's probably a white collar guy. He was a hunter, fisherman, you know, extremely familiar with the trails, familiar with the area, you know, sadistic. You know, Mirsky, our doctor, talked about him being sadistic. Put that in the profile. I mean, we had a lot of good hits, you know, and our profile, we'll have to put it back up. We took it down for a while, but we'll have to put it back up now. And, you know, hopefully that we and other YouTubers were able to put out enough information, because these guys, as you know, always follow the information. They're always watching any kind of news anywhere, on YouTube or online anywhere, or on television for that matter, to see what people are saying about them. And that way they get an idea of how close authorities might be, or whatever, what kind of evidence they might have, or whatever. And, you know, so they're always tuning in. So I have to believe that, you know, every time a YouTuber did something, right, wrong, or indifferent, it put a fear into this guy. And that is on top of Libby's video, right? That Abby helped her hide. I mean, because that was bothering me too, how she hid it. So I'm glad you brought that out. That's very important to know how Abby was really involved in that. So anyway, you're looking at that, and you know, when you try to, you know, pull it all apart, I mean, Libby's video kept this guy cooled off. The YouTubers kept him cooled off, because there's always some kind of information coming in Delphi, whether it was from YouTube, you know, sometimes major media, but you know, major media has to report the news, and you know, the case started to get older, so it wasn't news, and then would come back into the news, then it was out of the news. But on YouTube, it was pretty consistent. So this guy had to be in there looking. And, maybe nobody knew who the killer was, but he knew who he was. So when he would tune in on YouTube, he'd see himself. We didn't know who he was, but he knew who he was.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Libby consistently scared the living hell out of him. But then the narcissism kicks in at some point, and then you have, oh, I'll never get caught. You know how they think, right? But he didn't act out again that we know of. And I attribute that to Libby, and some of it to some YouTubers that just kept going at it and talking about and putting it out there and putting Libby's vid out there. I mean, so he was kept low and on the run by Libby's video. I mean, there's no question about it. I think she saved the day for other people, because I don't think this guy would have stopped. Lots of times we see them cool off because they're afraid. And he had a lot to be afraid of. That's why he kept changing the way he looks. If you notice the different looks, gain weight, lose weight, shave his hair off. I mean, he was doing all kinds of things. Excuse me.
And
So
on some
anyway, thank you. So anyway, go ahead, Pam.
No, I was just gonna say, on some of the personal videos that were on Facebook after, the crime, he didn't talk that much in those videos. Like,
Right.
he kept his voice at a minimum too.
Right. Yeah, remember we put in the profiles a man a few words.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was pretty slick with that. But even in Mirsky bringing out, this is some guy that seems weird. People are going to know him as being kind of weird. No sooner than that, than Jolene's video came out, and she talked about how weird he was at work and everything. And he ended up, I guess, being transferred out of that store because of his acting out or whatever. I mean, we had a lot of good hits on him, and the which I'm sure resonated with them. Now, they may not have resonated with anybody else because they were generic, right? I mean, we don't know who the guy is, but we have a good idea based on the cases we've worked. So I think we helped keep him a little bit in fear, and because he knew we knew on different things, white collar guy, like photography, and we never did, and into porno. He even called himself a sex addict. I remember that too. So he knew we had a little feeling for who he was. But I think it was the vast majority of YouTubers that added to Libby's video. Libby, number one, was the major player here that stopped this guy, I believe, because his picture was everywhere, even though you may not have been able to make it out, but he knew who he was. And I think he walked around having a fear that sooner or later somebody would recognize him.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was really really interesting situation. When we first saw the case, and I saw it when it first happened, we just felt, they'll have this guy scooped up in a day or two. They don't need us to be involved in this. Never did. Then a year and a half later, we heard from people that were involved with Delphi and asked us to get involved to see if we could help out in some way. But I couldn't believe it. A year and a half later, they didn't have the guy scooped up yet. But because the video, I guess, was kind of grainy, and also the way he had himself dressed and disguised, wasn't a clear picture. And a lot of people thought he was taller than what he was.
Right. Didn't he have his foot up or a hat on and boots, that
Yeah.
adds, you know?
And see, that added to the height too.
And also the angle of which she was taking the video, because if she was,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
no, I mean, if she was kind of at the end of the bridge and nervous and crouched down, he looked taller, you know?
Yeah, made him look taller.
Did you say that, Leah? Like the
Yeah,
angle of which
I
she,
would say so, yeah.
yeah.
And then Pam, I don't know if you've heard about it, but like, didn't he change his height too? Like on some like his
Yes.
license or something?
Yeah, on
Fishing
the
license.
fishing
Yeah.
license, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
So
catch.
tall.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, really,
His name was also listed as Whiteman, the street that he lived on that
Oh, yeah.
file. And I wonder whether he kind of added that in himself.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
why would somebody put down Richard Allen Whiteman? Because Allen could be a middle name, you know?
Mm,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's quite the manipulator.
Hmm.
Yeah,
You know,
I think he
it,
was quite the manipulator, this guy, the way he was playing with that psychologist in the prison and everything.
well,
And
you
I
know,
believe that psychologist, I believe every word she said. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, another interesting thing that came out in the press, well, not the press conference, but one of the YouTube channels I was watching with the people that were in court, is that Holman, right? Wasn't he the one that interrogated him
He
initially?
did a great job.
Yeah.
Holman did a great job.
Well, he got up there today and spoke in court, and he kind of, I don't wanna, I mean, the gist of it was that he kind of said that felt that he was using religion to be manipulative to his family and to everybody else. So you talk about him being manipulative. A lot of people do that when they're in prison.
Mhm.
They do.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other day. A lot of people all of a sudden find God when they're in prison. You know,
Yeah, and
uh,
that's not to knock the people who could really, I'm sure there's a lot of people who do find God in
that's
prison,
correct.
but
That's correct. That's
yeah,
correct. But I think this guy would manipulate any way, shape, or form. I think that there was a little part of him, and it goes back to Carter. Remember Carter saying,
yes,
you can be amongst us, and I think there's a little bit of
yes.
guilt or something left in you,
Conscience, like a
some
mm,
piece of the
conscience,
conscience.
yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit of conscience, yeah.
yeah.
And I think that resonated in some way. But what I think really nailed them was, and I think this was on the recording, tell me if I'm wrong, when Holman was doing the interview, he was recording it. And I think the wife came in, or Richard came back to his wife or something. And the wife said to him, "You never told me you were on the
That's
bridge."
right. She
I
came
mean,
in.
that definitely,
Yep.
you know, for me, it was like a major hit. Also, when this guy sent in his initial letter, I mean, that's what really turned me on to him right off the hop. And he never put in the letter, "I'm innocent of killing these two little girls." And he wanted, financial help from the judge and from the courts to get him a couple of lawyers. He didn't realize it was going to be so expensive, he said. Right? I mean, who in their right mind doesn't start screaming from the windows of the prison, "I'm innocent, I'm innocent. What are you doing? I never killed two little girls. How could you say that?
Right.
Why not put it in that letter? Judge, please get me the help I need. I'm innocent. I didn't kill those two little girls. This is all wrong." Nothing like that in that initial letter. That spoke volumes to me, because that is not a normal reaction in
Sure.
any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, just pretty incredible. So, what else do we have here? We're so thankful for Delphi and the people of Delphi. Just a great community. I hope they're able to heal now. Just you may have been traumatized. You don't even realize you're traumatized. Just give yourself a chance to heal and work it out. I don't know what else to say. Do you guys have anything else you want to say?
I was just gonna say, I'm just happy that to the families, right, that
Yeah.
even though, you know, this isn't closure, but at least they can close a chapter. The chapter of going through, having to constantly go through whether there's going to be some kind of resolve in this case for Abby and Libby. So now they can at least have peace in that respect.
Just focus on Abby and Libby instead of
Right.
who did it.
Yeah, and you know, all they went through. I mean, that's a class family.
Yeah.
All they went through, and you know, the way the conspiracy kooks were, you know, bringing the family in and coming up with all these lies and criticisms and all this just negative stuff.
And how about spreading those photos around, John?
Oh my God. And then sending those photos around. I mean, I mean, in this case was really, you know, one I will absolutely positively never forget. I mean, it is right there with the top cases I've ever been involved in because I've never seen, you know, so much going on in one case. I've never, you know, we usually have the usual suspects, you know, in a case.
Right.
But with this case, I mean, there was so many different people and so many twists and turns, you know, and you know, you're looking at all these various circumstances and these various people that are coming up with these conspiracy theories out of nowhere without any proof to really back them up. And this admonishing of the family, you know, I mean, I never ran into anything like this, you know, and again, the family dealt with it so gracefully, you know,
Right.
and followed through on, you know, what police said to them and what police advised them to do. I mean, you know, they just followed through, you know, did a great job. I mean, and this was, you know, this is a pretty traumatic, hurtful situation. But anyway, so we're saying goodbye to Delphi, but also we will never forget Delphi, and we'll never forget the people of Delphi. There's a lot of good people. A lot of good people came forward. You know, forgetting for a minute all the crazies and conspiracy nuts that were running. A lot of good people came forward from all over. I
Mhm.
mean, it was amazing to me, like from all over different parts of the world were noticing and involved in which way, shape, or form in this case. And, you know, I have to say that, you know, I think that the world in itself will always remember Delphi. Most importantly, they'll always remember Abby Williams and Libby German. God
Right.
bless. So, with that being said, is there anything else we want to say?
That's all I got.
I think you covered it, John.
Covered it.
Well, to Delphi, to all our viewers, thank you so much for all your support over these years with Delphi and other cases. And again, God bless the families, Libby German and Abby Williams and their friends as well, and the whole town of Delphi and everybody that's been involved in this, excuse me, in this case. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Please stay on your toes. We live in a very violent world. Most important, you know, keep a focus on yourself and take care of yourself. And until next time, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.